Now over to our interactive segment. Being Thursday, we talk about issues close to our hearts, and this morning we're going to be focusing on mental wellness. Yes, this comes at a time when that particular issue has been focused on our major dailies, and actually the header on some of the front page reads, "Declare mental illness a public health crisis, a president urged." If I can take you through what that particular article says, is that when the Presidential Task Force on Mental Health in Kenya toured Nakuru County, its members met an 80-year-old patient who had been abandoned by family at Gilgil Hospital for 60 years. Now, during their visit to Mathare Hospital on February the 14th, they found extremely deplorable conditions. Quoted there is one of the team members saying that it is difficult to believe that people can work cheerfully in a dedicated manner in a dilapidated, dehumanizing environment that we found. Now, the team was constituted in November 21st and inaugurated on December 11th by the then health CS, that is Cicely Kariuki. President Kenyatta had directed the ministry to establish a task force to look into the status of mental health in the country. It is also co-chaired by Dr. Frank Njenga. Now, it held public participation in forums across the country, and now some of the reports that this team has handed over to the health CS Mutahi Kagwe on Tuesday. The task force recommended that the president declares mental illness a national public health emergency. Some of the statistics in that particular report is that 1 in every 10 Kenyans has one form of mental disorder. This morning we're tackling mental wellness in our KBC Kids Talk show. We want to hear from parents as well as professionals as well as the kids themselves as to what areas are, what are the stress triggers, because we want to believe anxiety, stress is one form or another of mental disorder. We're going to differentiate between, mental health and mental wellness, as also focus on issues of self-care. Joining me this morning is Dr. Margaret Olande, who is a psychologist, and she's going to be keeping us, company during this particular broadcast to shed light on the issue of mental health. Good morning, Dr. and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Great to have you on board.
Yes, great to have you too.
Yes. Now, we have this particular header this morning, "Declare mental illness a public health crisis." From where you sit, is this the right move? Is this the right time to actually have mental illness, declared a public health crisis?
Yes, this is the right route, and it should have been taken even long time ago, given the circumstances we found ourselves, where schools are closed and people are losing jobs, people are locked down. They are in circumstances they were not used to, and so anxiety has settled. The thought of what is coming tomorrow. I mean, will I go back to school, especially among the young people? So anxiety has settled, and to be anxious, that is not the best place to be. And if it's not sorted early enough, anxiety has its very bad repercussions. It is a mental disorder which needs to be addressed very soon. And it is not just among the young people, it's about the older people. The anxiety about, my parents, will my parents still be there for me? Maybe a young person was going to school and is wondering, I was just being sponsored maybe by my uncle. Now my uncle has lost his job, or my parents have lost jobs. And so that pattern where we have found ourselves has caused a lot of anxiety that brings about the discussion on mental illness. So as we go on, we'll try to look at specifically what is it that WHO describes as mental illness.
Uh-huh. Now, Dr. would want to first start by expounding exactly what mental illness is, because on ground, especially in the public forum, whenever you talk about mental illness, people think that it's the clinical form that I need to be in Mathari Hospital or not. How about we unpack what mental illness or other disorders we are looking at this point? Maybe you can help us expound on that.
Um, Maybe we'll just look at the scholarly description or definition or all that, that mental health is a state of well-being in which the individual realizes his or her own abilities. Your abilities, you cannot cope, your ability to cope has been impaired, and you become so unsettled. You may be, you can feel that you are stressed. You may not even know what is causing that stress. Why am I not settled? So you're just overwhelmed by what is happening around you. And so that is also part of mental health. But when we talk about mental health, there are many areas that are considered. The deeper we go into the state of health is what can be described as other areas that may be considered to take you to Madare. But not all mental health is a cause to go to Madare, because at a trauma, you can be traumatized. Something you could have gone through, something that has traumatized you, and that causes you to unsettled, not to think properly. You may not even be able to even want to go to the bathroom, to even take a bath. You are just someone, people look at you and you are not to you, you think you are working very well, that you are in control of what you are doing, but you are not in control of what you are doing. At your place of work, you may not be productive. You don't do things on time. So it's a couple of both psychological and psychiatric assessment that will make will help the psychiatrist or the psychologist to decide that now where you are today, this is now a case that needs to be addressed either by a psychologist or a psychiatrist, or needs an hospital. But one has to go through a medical assessment to determine exactly where they are.
Thank you very much,
So,
Dr. Margaret Olande, who is a psychologist. She's going to be helping us just, circumvent, or rather just go through this conversation, giving her her expert opinion in regard to mental wellness. We also have some of our participants this morning, and we have them online. And we have Mungai online. Mungai, Nkatha, sorry. Nkatha, good morning. How are you? Glad to have you on board once again.
Yes, good morning to you, Ray.
Great. Just remind us where you're live from.
I'm live from Nakuru County.
That is Nakuru County. Glad to have you on board. Now, we've heard there from Madam Daktari there, Dr. Margaret Olande, who's a psychologist, saying that the issues, the pressures, the current pressures that people are dealing with, that include the issue of lack of jobs, constant and negative, politics, fear of violence, and divisive elections. Just some of the reports that you've had in the report that was handed over to the president, and also, the health CS there, Kagwe, that says 1 in every 10 Kenyans has a form of mental disorder. From where you sit in Katha, where do you think this is so?
There's so many reasons as to why someone might be having, might be going through the mental challenge. And the fact, one being the economic crunch that everybody's feeling, and maybe the stress levels have also increased. And considering also we have our children in the houses, also there's also the aspect of what juggling between the office, juggling between finding a job, juggling between finding the stability for these children, and whether you're raising them very well. And there's also the societal expectations from everybody, especially for men.
for men, the pressures. But now then, we are here. We found ourselves in this situation. And what has come out, even from that particular report in the survey that has been conducted, and it shows that a majority of low-income earners from Nairobi, with children staying at home, say feeding them is one of their greatest challenge. From where you sit in Katha, do you think, just being able to take care, to fend for your children, especially within the family setup, is one of the cause of anxiety and stress among the parents?
Yes, I believe it's actually one of the reasons why parents are quite struggling right now. Because I mean, for instance, if you're used to children being in schools, they most of the time will either get either breakfast or dinner at home, and the only thing they get from school maybe it's their lunch. So it kind of breaks, like the parents get relieved that their child is going to get a one meal in school. While the other thing is that when they're in school, they also get that attention from teachers, and also the teachers are also able to guide them. But now when they're at home and they're stuck there, they have to like all the time as parents we have to consider, will my child be safe in this house? Do I leave them in the house, or do I find someone to stay with them? Or what exactly do I do to ensure that my child is safe in this house? And either way they can access their basic needs, because as it is right now, if you violate a child's rights in any way, whether it's maybe you can't afford their meals, or either you can't clothe them properly, or either you neglect them in one aspect or the other, then there are chances of you getting jailed, or either also being taken to court. And as a parent, you're kind of scared that you don't want to get to that point where you're taken to court and you have to drag yourself down there through the judicial system.
Now, Katha, I'd want to know, have you ever been in a situation where you had an overwhelming sense of incapacity that caused you stress and anxiety that you'd be willing to share with us in this forum, and how you got over it?
Uh, Personally, I am a survivor actually of of emotional and long term, because I had PTSD, and it was kind of prolonged for quite some time, because my story starts when I was about 3 years, and by the time I was 17 years, my dad was killed. And it was very unfortunate that I was there to watch the whole ordeal. And it kind of traumatized me from 2017. Let me say until today, I'm still recovering from the whole issue, because you out of the post-traumatic stress disorder that you go through, either through, especially my experience of watching my dad get killed. Actually, he was cut by his brother using a machete. So it wasn't funny that people kind of didn't understand what I was going through, and people could actually make a lot of jokes about it. But for me, I knew I couldn't be like, I couldn't trust people. I couldn't even like stay, like I couldn't hold on to my job for quite some long. So I moved from one company to the other in the aim of trying to find my stability. And at some point I had to even quit, because most of my job, especially the last one, I didn't leave the job. You know, the way you resign and you're saying, now I've had enough of this. I remember at some point I had to like throw the keys, the office keys, to my boss, because she called me Pakahi. And I kind of I kind of like blew things out of proportion, and I left. So when I left, I decided now there's nothing major to do. So I went back into selling mtumba. I stayed for a while there, like 6 months, and then I got another job. I came to Nakuru, and on getting to Nakuru now, I decided, now I think I've been on the run for so long, and I cannot, it's about time I faced my situation and did something about it. Because, you can't keep on, like you get a job today, and tomorrow you leave the job without even a specific reason. You're not even giving any reason why you're not feeling like going to work, where you're not feeling like you want to talk to people. The only interaction that you want to have is to people through social media. For me, that didn't kind of look like life, and that's how I founded the organization I work with currently, Frolics of Hope Africa, that we help children, especially who've gone through traumatic experiences in life, to cope with life. and probably also have access to mental health issues.
That was quite, quite a summary there, Nkatha. I'm glad that you can share, or rather, you've had, you've trusted us to share that information with us. And I'm glad that you're a survivor and you look back and you see that, you stopped running at some point. You start running at
Yes.
some point. But because we have a psychologist online, that is Dr. Margaret Olande, let's hear what she has to say to just help you, just some, how survival tactics. You've had Nkatha's story there that she witnessed the brutal murder of her dad, and she was also already going through, trauma at the age of 3. That was when she lost her father at the age of 17. This is something that has changed, her aspect in terms of life. From where you sit, Dr. Margaret Olande, as a psychologist, then how can we help her cope with this going into the future?
Thank you, Nkada, for sharing. Because a problem shared is solved, and many people do not believe that they should share. But you've grown to a point that you can now share and you can talk freely about it. That means that you are on your way to, almost 70 to 80% recovery. And I believe you are coping well. And I just want to thank you because what you've done is just, sharing to those who are listening. There are so many people because someone somewhere will tell about this story that I heard of, when I was listening to KBC. This lady shared that she has recovered from post-traumatic experiences, and now she's well, she's coping well. So that is a coping skill. So thank you so much. Trauma is very, very deep. And the fact that you are traumatized at a young age when you did not even know that what trauma is all about. It's not like when one is grown, then probably your friends or your parents will look at you and maybe seek medical attention. You are looking at your father, as he was murdered. These are very bizarre, incidents that a small child should not go through. And the fact that you have lived out of it and you are sharing today, I am so, so, so very grateful. And so talk about trauma. Trauma is a state of not being able to really cope. You may not even know, you are scared. Even when you hear some noise, like when you saw your father being murdered, maybe just hearing people making, any type of noise, that noise will take you back to the scene. Just hearing people talking about, oh, there were people fighting here, if they, because you said they had machete. So even seeing someone with a machete takes you back to the scene. So you keep on going back to that scene, you keep on looking behind you. You reach a point whereby you do not even trust anyone. You may not even trust the very people who may help you. Well, be they teachers, especially if the assailants were male. Then you reach a point where you do not even trust any male, because to you any male is a murderer. And maybe later in the program you will tell us whether you are married, whether you are able to date, because I don't know how that was like for you because of the experiences you went through. So trauma, when discovered and when it is known, should be addressed. At least a psychologist should see you, and then now, if your parents knew, you should have gone to a child psychologist to be able to even deal with what you are going through then. And then as you grew up, then probably you could go to an older, psychologist or a counselor to help you to cope. Because without which, the anxiety that you lived with would have disoriented you. Even I don't know how you are able to perform in school, because it destabilizes you in so many areas of your life, and it can impact very, very negatively, because you may have worries that are so persistent, You may end up with very intense heartbeat. You may not sometimes even be able to stand before people and talk because you are very, very anxious, because you don't trust the people who are around you. And this interferes with your productivity, interferes with your stability, interferes with your concentration. So anyone, when it is well known that you have gone through a trauma, should seek psychological attention, and then your psychologist or your counselor will tell you that you need maybe a psychiatrist to assessment. And that's why we also say that even in schools, we should have counselors. And even right now, what people are going through, that anxiety is the order of the day. Schools should develop programs, even as young people are at home. When we have even online teaching or lessons, those lessons should be accompanied by some form of counseling, so that people are counseled, because to be anxious, permanently, it is not a good place to be. But trauma is a state of mental disorder, and it is not a well place to be. So you will please share with us. I
Yes.
don't know.
Now let's get
Yeah.
to hear what Nkata has to say, from that information that you gave us, you've given us, Dr. Margaret Olande. Thank you very much for that feedback. Now, Nkata, if we have you back online, I'd want to hear what is your take in regard to what Dr. Ari there has shared, and how you're faring.
Especially if she can share with us how her coping skills, because some
Your
people
coping skills there, that is what Dr. Margaret Olande wants to hear. I mean, how
yeah,
have you developed coping skills with your trauma? Maybe you can share with us, Nkata. What's your take on what
and even
Dr. Ari has
abuse
said?
alcohol, drugs, and all that. But just share with us how you coped.
Nkata, to you. Nkata, good
My
morning.
coping skills was actually something I don't know if it kind of because I became very active. I wasn't at some point. Of course, I was a bit secluded for like a month or two. But after that, now I realized I kind of was sinking into depression, and I had to do something about it. Although I couldn't put the term like depression to what I was going through by then. So I just like Dr. is mentioning, at some point I couldn't, the fact that I was from Darakanivi, and I had come to I was actually in school. So I hear you speaking Kimeru, and I would like totally napiga corner to the other end, like I must run away from all this. And the fact that I could also not have friends so close by. I still don't, by the way. Even to date, it's very hard for me to bring relatives and friends into my house. And I find it more like, like we can meet outside there and chat right now. But previously, I couldn't do that. And I was also I decided now to get more involved in other things, especially when it comes to marketing and sales. I decided now, instead of sitting behind a computer like I was used to, it became very boring for me, and every other time I would find myself thinking about the entire ordeal. So I decided at that point now I should move to marketing. But I couldn't, even if I did marketing, I couldn't do marketing to like a specific kind of group. Daktari asked if I have been married and if I've dated. Honestly, I'm 31, but I haven't, because I find it very difficult, because the moment of course, people say in relationship there's one or two lies that cover up. And when you do that for me, you cover up a lie and another lie. So whenever you do that for me, it kind of pisses me off. In fact, it blows me off the grid completely. So I don't
Okay.
encourage those relationships and
Okay, thank you very much, Nkata, for
I
sharing your story there
kind
and letting
of
us just
find a
in
way of.
on your struggles there. We will be getting back to just hear what Dr. Ari has to say about what you've said. But before then, how about we invite someone else into this Mora? Let's talk to Mora and hear what she has to say in regard to this matter. Mora, good morning.
Good morning, thank you.
Great to have you on board. Tell us where you're live from.
I'm live from Nairobi County.
Asante Sana, Nairobi County getting represented there. Now, you've heard what Daktari has said there, as well as our first guest there, Katha, just sharing her issues in regard to, a situation she found herself overwhelmed, and she's still trying to deal with it. What is your take on the issue of mental health? Have you had an experience with such, and how have you coped?
Yeah, I had actually two. One when I was in high school. I was around Form 3 and Form 4. So I had my fellow students visit my home. I didn't come from such a wealthy background. So on inviting friends to just come and say hi to me at my place, people I trusted at that time, on going back to school, they made fun of me because they didn't find our home as pleasing as it ought to be according to them during those times. So for the whole term, I would say I was depressed, but my deputy madam helped me to walk through it. So it was frustrating to me as a student. I want to study, but again, people are making a mockery of you. You may be walking along the pathways of the school, and every student knows like someone and someone went to somebody's place, and it wasn't such good, and yet they are studying in this kind of school. So it wasn't such a good experience for me. I felt sad for the whole term. We went home feeling still sad, but now when we came back, I had actually walked out of it because I felt like even if this has happened, there is something maybe I could do in the future to have a change. And the
Now,
second
now,
experience,
Mora,
when,
Mora,
yes,
Mora. Right now we're dealing, and I'd want you to maybe expound more. The issue when you fell into depression, you said that your house mother helped you get through it. Now we are having children who are also dealing with peer pressure, and I tend to think that also, one way or another, just affects your self-esteem. Tell us, how did you cope? Has this issue sense of, you cannot trust the friends you're with, or to just be open? Has it affected your relations as a grown up at this point?
at this point, I have dealt with it, but on winding high school, joining to campus, I was very sensitive to friendship, and I could actually fear to invite people to my place because I felt like now they are maybe richer than I am, or they are a little bit better than me. But
Now, that is Mora who is
I
sharing
did
her
a
story.
talk there.
Yeah, you're back online. But
Yes, who are older than me. So on sharing with them, they encouraged me to do a
okay, we're having a bit of a
better.
problem there
And
with
now I did
your
a swipe of friendship. You will find me with older. Sorry?
your net is a bit shaky, but now you're stable. So we were just talking about if your experiences, growing up, especially in high school. We wanted to establish if they have affected your relations now as a grown up, and what you have done to cope, with your anxiety around, just inviting people in your personal space.
What I've done actually at this point of my life, I have swapped my friendship. I walk around with people who are older, especially when it comes to ladies. I have ladies as friends who are older than me, maybe the age of my mother, and a little bit slightly older than me, because now I feel I'm a little bit comfortable at their space. Because I feel like they won't judge me at my age, because now they don't expect me to be where they are, as I am much younger than them. And when it comes to the age, my age mates, it's a little bit difficult for me to interact with such. But whenever I do, I am very cautious of it. And I think first if I really want to have good friendship with these people. But it barely works out for me because I have my own insecurities already.
Okay. Mora there. Daktari, we're still having you online. You've heard what Mora has had to say, that her issues started at the age of 14 when she trusted her friends to come over to her place, but they ended up mocking her. As coping mechanism, now her friends are of an older demographic, age of her mom. She feels more secure within such spaces. What do you have to say about that? Daktari Margaret Olandi, who's a psychologist. What do you have to say about Mora's coping mechanism?
Uh, Mora, thank you for sharing. It's always therapeutic when you share. But I must say that low self-esteem is mainly among the young people, but it's also among also older people. But it depends on how you look at life. For Mora, she thought that being you know, having parents who are not as wealthy as the parents of her friends made her, look down upon herself. And once you look down upon yourself, regardless of, even if you are friends, maybe they didn't even mind, they are your friends, maybe they did not mind. But because mentally you have put it in your mind that these people, the way they talk, the English they talk, the schools they go to, their clothes, so that made you, think, belittle yourself, so to speak, in a sense. And so you decide that your coping skill in this matter is to get along with older people, and you rightly put it that they will not judge you. It's a state of insecurity. You felt so insecure amongst your peers that you are hiding, you are hiding behind the curtains, and you are, because you are not able to cope. Probably also a bit of anxiety, you are also anxious. How will my tomorrow be when I meet them? How will I even, cope? Will they keep on judging me that I'm from a poor family? But one needs to probably, because maybe you are stressed. I wouldn't call it depression. I don't think it is not a depressed state, but you suffered just a low self-esteem. You got so stressed in a manner that you are looking behind your shoulders. Why am I not like the others? And this would take you to even blaming your parents. How come they are not as wealthy as these people? Maybe they are not even working hard as the parents of the others. So if you knew what to do, probably you needed a bit of counseling, you needed affirmation. The counselor would have affirmed you and told you, you are just right the way you are. You are just okay the way you are. You are going to school, and after going to school, you will change this state that you do not like. But what happens is that maybe sharing is also a problem because of your state of insecurity. You don't trust anyone. When I share with them, what will they take me to be? They will still look down upon me because of, the schools I go to, the shoes I wear, the kind of food probably you prepared for them. Maybe your reason of being friends with older people, because you knew that there is no time that you will invite older people to your home, so you are safer that way. Because this for you is a very good corner, it's a comfortable corner, but it wasn't a good corner for you, because what were you going to discuss with these older people? They have experiences that you do not have. So the best way to handle this is to seek counseling,
Seek
so that you
counseling.
can be affirmed, you can be talked to, you can be told that you are okay the way you are, and believe in yourself.
Okay.
It's not a very deep state of mental illness, but when left and unattended to, can cause even your performance in school to deteriorate.
Very well said. That is our resident doctor for today to take us through, this discussion of mental wellness, at a time when we are grappling with that issue, whether it should be declared a public health crisis. Dr. Margaret Olandi, the psychologist, advice to Mora is that you need to share more, and you need to go for counseling for affirmation. Thank you for sharing your story, Mora, and I hope this platform has helped you just see what you need to do going forward in future. We have one of our participants. Also, we have Timothy Ekesa on the line. Good morning, Timothy. How are you?
Good morning to you, Regina.
Great to have you on board. What do you have to say about the current discussion that we're holding?
Very interesting discussions, but I think one thing that comes out very clearly that both Nkatha and Dolin Mora, I can see there are two Moras, Purity and Dolin, what they're discussing about the trauma, the stress, the depression, it happened when they were children. And to me, it really sends a very big message to all of us that we need to look at our children. Most of these issues, Ngata was 3 years, Dolin was 14 years. So it seems children are going a lot of trauma, actually going through a lot of trauma. And I agree with the president that we need to declare this to be a national disaster in this country.
Now, Timothy Akesa, you're one of our participants who we expect to be here in studio. By any chance, why did you dodge not coming to the studio this morning?
I was not coming. You had Dr. Margaret with you there. I just wanted to follow the method discussion and actually relate it to what is happening right now with this idea of schools closing for a whole year. So I really wanted to see how it will link up into it. What kind of trauma we're going to get from children? What kind of depression are we going to expect come that magical January 2021?
Have you encountered any form of this, just something that had gotten you very overwhelmed, rather, that gave you a lot of anxiety or stress in your, in your childhood or even now as an adult, Timothy? Have you undergone?
Yes. I think as a child, I also went through a lot of stress. I also went through a lot of trauma, especially when it comes to issues of when you are in a school. I used to be sickly when I was in school. And when you talk to your parent and they can't see why they should change you to another school, or when you have this migraine that doesn't go away, it causes a lot of stress because you don't concentrate. And at times you fail who to talk to. And as a child, when we grew up, we never used to be very free with our parents like the children of nowadays, the Nkata type and Dolin who can talk to their parents. For us, it was so difficult. And during our growing up again, we didn't have that chance of having counselors in schools. It's a new concept that has come in. All you could have were teachers who are teaching the various subjects, and the whole department of counseling was not there. So we struggled through. You could talk to your peers. I could talk to a few older people we have, but they don't give you answers. The answer, they'll tell you that we went through it, also just go through it.
Yeah, there's always that response when you share while you're growing up that wewe jikaze, we were there. We were there, you will get over it. Now, we still have some waiting to join in this discussion. Now, our next guest, thank you, team, for your time. Thank you for your contribution there, highlighting the need to have just counseling mechanisms, especially in schools, and people with answers, well trained to just handle issues that children are going through, not the issue of stresses. Now, the report that we got, or rather that has been handed to the president, says that 1 out of every 10 Kenyans has one form of mental disorder. And picking from what Dr. Margaret Olande, who is our guest this morning, a psychologist, said, the issue of anxiety and stresses are some of the issues, some of the triggers in regard to just, mental wellness. It may not be something so big, but if left unattended and not spoken about, then it can deteriorate to a bigger and larger problem. Now, still coming up, we want, let me just share some of the feedback that we have received on our Twitter handle. Let me start from is one gentleman who, there it is. I'm Mwenda. Ian Mwenda on Twitter says, everything happens in its season. We shall overcome COVID-19 and it will not last. This comes at a time when this report has been released, is that there's been an upward trajectory of health issues, rather especially the issues of mental wellness at this time when people are going through COVID-19. Then also we have one more. Timothy Akesa also came on Twitter and said, do we have a choice? No, we have no control over it. Let's take each day as it comes and help our kids go through this tough time. This is by Mama Ryan from Nakuru. Thank you very much for tweeting. Let's keep this conversation going. What do you think about this issue of mental wellness? And is it about time that we declared mental illness a public health crisis? Now we have Jackie Njeri online. Good morning, Jackie. How are you? Glad to have you on board.
Good morning.
Great to see you. What do you have to say about this particular conversation that we're having? And also tell us where it is that you're live from. Or you're live from Nairobi? Great.
Yes.
Now tell us, what is your take in regard to the issue of mental illness? What is your take? Why do you think we have such many cases? The report says that 1 out of every 10 Kenyans has one form of mental disorder. Why do you think it's on the rise?
Well, mental health is real. It's actually one disturbing thing to most young people, especially the teenagers. Personally, when I was growing up, I had a health issue, some complications, and it was really, really difficult for me. I went through some kind of depression, and nobody could notice that because they thought it is just a normal thing. My health was really not doing well, Kabisa, and I would cry most of the time, and I was so afraid about the following day. Will I make it? Or will I survive? Will I, live long like I wanted? Will I become the journalist that I really wanted? It was really difficult for me as a person, as a young person at that particular time. And so I found myself being alone. I preferred being alone because I was laughed at. People were mocking. I mean, were mocking me and all that. And so growing up, it was really, really difficult until right now. It is still difficult because I'm still struggling with that. I'm still struggling with the illness. And that is not all because, okay, you keep on upgrading. When I was young, I was dealing with people and children because they were laughing at me. And now I have to deal with, what about my tomorrow? Will I be able to do one, two, three? Will I be able to achieve my goals with this kind of an illness? And so it has been a bit traumatizing. And also interacting with young people, especially the young girls. I've come to learn that actually mental illness is real because it affects young girls in terms of, you know if of especially sexual abuse. Most young girls go through sexual abuse, and it is usually really difficult on their case. Another thing that I realize about mental illness on young people is stress and depression. When you feel you're not yourself, when you feel like you're not good enough to fit somewhere, when you feel like you're not strong enough to do a lot of things, and the anxiety of tomorrow. So mental illness is real, and I'm so encouraged by the stories being shared today. And I feel like if we can have somebody to address this issue, then we will be in a good
Now,
position
Jackie,
as a
allow me
country.
to take you back in your upbringing. I have a question about your support structure. While people from outside were taking time to jeer at you and mock you about something they really did not know about exactly what is happening with you, how was your support structure? And how your family, was it supportive?
Well, for my mom was really supportive, but not in terms of mental illness. She was supportive in my health issue, but the rest of the issues, I think I was not sharing too much about them, and even the teachers, I could not share. Because I felt shy, and I felt like they'll end up laughing at me. So it is something that I had to deal with it by myself.
Now, you're a journalist, and they say we're in the same line of work right now. Do you think what you went through then in regard to just issues of self-esteem issues and such, has it in one way or another affected the way your interpersonal relationship with other people?
Very much. Especially, I feel like sometimes I feel like I'm not good enough. Sometimes I'm given a task and I'm like, oh my goodness, am I going to manage this? And I'm like, no, I can't. I had confidence issues. I couldn't face somebody, and I'm like, my name is Jack Jerry. I am a journalist. I'm from this organization. I want to know about. It was really, really difficult because I could see like they would laugh at me at the end of the day. So it is difficult for me as a journalist.
Now, how about we rope in Dr. Margaret Olande, who is a psychologist and helping us just help us just understand and navigate this issue. Dr. You've heard what Jack and Jerry has said, the issue of self-esteem. She's still struggling with a few issues, from scars from her past. What advice would you give her at this point so that she can, continue being a brilliant journalist as she is? Dr. Ari.
Um, there are so many, types of mental illness. We one has to know where they are, which type of, mental illness are you suffering from? Because like what she has just shared was a bit of low self-esteem combined with anxiety and not wanting to meet people, not wanting to be where people are. But for coping skills, you need to talk to someone. You need to share with someone who you are confident that at least they will not share your state in a very negative way with others. If you trust your parents, you can talk to your parents. If you trust your teachers, you can talk to your teachers. But mental illness will tell you that you are okay. You are okay where you are. You don't need to talk to people. You feel sad and you see that state is, you are very okay in that sad state. You feel anxious and you are very okay in that, feeling very anxious. But the best things to do is, like I said before, is to seek, help. Seek help from a counselor, seek help from, if you think your parents can help you, if you don't trust them because you think they will judge you, then don't share with them, but share with someone who can help you. Um, but the best thing to do is to really, because when you share or when you go to see a professional, then they will tell you the type of mental illness you are. Probably you are thinking yours is so deep and you can't cope with it and it cannot be treated. And it is just something that when you go through maybe a few sessions of counseling, maybe even just a talk with a psychiatrist, if that is the level that your primary health care has told you to go to, then you will be helped. But what is important is to really know where you are. Is it a clinical depression? Is it anxiety? Is it bipolar? Is it the dementia? Are you suffering from schizophrenia? So you need assessment. You
Okay.
need medical assessment to really know where you are. You can overjudge yourself for what you are not even suffering from. Probably it's just fear of tomorrow,
Uh-huh.
you know?
Thank you very
Yeah.
much, Dr. Ari there. That is Dr. Margaret Landi, psychologist, just helping us navigate this issue of mental wellness and just trying to speaking to the participants who have raised the issues and just trying to see how we can work going ahead. Now, Jack and Jerry, you've heard the issue of anxiety. You just need to talk to someone so that you can, establish exactly what you're dealing with so that you can forge ahead. We welcome feedback, and feedback is trickling in. Our Twitter handles at KBC Channel 1 News. Mine is at Ray Manyara. Now, Winnie Minor says mental illness is a silent killer and should be taken more seriously. Identifying the same and getting correct support to overcome it is a need in this country. Do you agree? Do you agree? While we're still waiting for your feedback, let's listen in on Purity Mora, what she has to say in regard to this conversation. Purity Mora, good morning.
Good morning, Regina. How are you?
Great to have you on board. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
So far, so good in this conversation. What do you think about this issue of mental illness from where on an individual capacity? What's your take?
I think it's a very timely topic. Something most people are going through. Because I mean, 1 in 10 people, that's a huge number. I mean, you're in a room of 10 people, one of you is likely to have a mental issue. So it's a very timely topic, and I'm glad it's a major concern and an emergency. I just like to say there is a difference. I'm a psychology student and a mental advocate
Good.
and wellness enthusiast. Yes. And I've been working with different organizations like Amazing Minds Africa and Basic Needs, Basic Rights, Inuka as well, which are platforms that enhance mental awareness. And I think the biggest problem we have is information. There's not enough information. So now that it is an emergency, a health emergency, the way we talk about corona, we should wash our hands, we should wear masks. I think that is something we should also preach with mental wellness. Let us have advertisements about what we can do. Let us say, if, for example, Inuka is a free platform where someone can get help and counseling and free therapy. We have Kenyatta National Hospital, where Professor Mudhoni Mathai is a counselor and a therapist, and these are free. So I'm sure most people did not have this information. Also, you don't
Now,
have to have
Purity, let me just cut you short there. Would want to know where you're live from. I understand you're a student. You didn't share which campus
yeah.
and which branch that is. Then you're very close to the gadget. So kindly just lean back a little bit so that we can get
All
to
right.
see you better. Awesome.
Okay.
Much better. Just give us that information where you're live from and you're pursuing, psychology, I guess, and tell us
Yeah.
which campus and where it is situated.
All right. I am a student at Kenyatta University, psychology student, third year. Yes.
So where are you right now? Are you within the campus
Oh,
premises?
I'm in Nairobi.
Ah, you're in Nairobi. Great.
Yes.
Third year student pursuing psychology there. Purity Mora sharing her experience. Now, we've seen the current, the current statistics as it is. We've seen an upward trajectory in increase, in issues of, mental illness. In one way, either right now or in your past, have you had an encounter that, almost made you, lose your sense of being? And how did you cope with that, if at all there was such a situation?
Yes, Regina. As I was growing up, I faced domestic violence at home, and it was hard for me because seeing your parents not in good terms wasn't quite exciting. But I would say it was more of a defense mechanism than a coping mechanism because I really just tried to push it back and focus on my studies, especially in primary school. Uh, I indulge in debate, I indulge in drama and music, and just put all my energy there to kind of forget what is happening at home. Yes.
And a coping escapism, some of sort, as you said, it was an escape.
Yes.
And what you witnessed while you're growing up, yeah, has this in one way or another influenced your relations, now as an adult?
Um, I think now that I had put it in the back of my mind, I have nothing to point out. I wouldn't say I have problems with my friends really. No, but I think I coped well, and I used to talk to my teachers about it. No, not all. I had a counseling teacher mostly in high school, and I used to express myself through drama and music. I'd read books and I'd just put my mind there. Yes.
Now, let's hear from our resident doctor today, that is Margaret Olande, who's a psychologist, just to try and put that into perspective. We've seen there's also been a huge increase in number of gender-based violence, especially among students. There was quite, a debacle in a story that drew a lot of headlines where, an ex hacked another, just outside one of these local universities. Daktari, from where you sit, you've had Purity Mora's issues. She put all her energies into music and just, trying to forget and put it at the back of her mind. What advice would you give her? And also just rope in on the issue of gender-based violence, especially among children, and how then this, among students, and how then this is related to the issue of the status of the mind, the mental status.
Thank you, Purity. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for bringing up the issue of GBV, gender-based violence. We are who we are because of the way we were socialized. So mental illness is to some extent associated with socialization, because for a man, Ekesa shared that he could not talk so much about what he was going through because he's answering to the what we call the masculine mandate that does not allow him to share his weaknesses. So he stood, as a macho. He's a man, so he was not going to share with anyone. And because the society does not expect expect any weakness from a man like Ekesa. And so for Purity, it was both a defense mechanism, but also a coping skill. As a girl growing up in a family where maybe people used to abuse one another and fight, and so her stability was interfered with. She looked probably, I don't know whether she said it was her parents, but whoever was not, living well around her. So there was a disconnect. Is this what I'm going to as a lady? Will I really, even date and get married? And if this is the kind of life I'm going to live, then probably I don't even need to, get married. Maybe those thoughts crossed her mind. So she decided, you know what, I'm going to be very, very, very active. And I appreciate what Purity did, because that being active is one of the coping skills, is one of the defense mechanisms, so that she was just pushing it behind, to deal with it later. She didn't solve it, because when you push a problem, it will repress. You suppress it, and it will come back when a situation like that also comes on again. So you needed to seek help. But when we go to gender-based violence that is rampant today among young people, among older people, it has been caused by the state in which we find ourselves, the socio-economic state. Our economy is going down. People are losing jobs. And so people are not able to cope. You are used to getting, feeding your family. And here you are now, you cannot even feed this family. Men especially suffer most, because men are not used to, staying at home, looking at children making noise, expecting you as the provider to provide, and you cannot provide. And so what do? They become so agitated because, for example, here is maybe your wife or your children. They want, the life that they were used to. Sometimes some people have been, so displaced. You need to go to a smaller house. These children were not even used to going to be in a smaller house. They want to study. So their studies have also been interfered with. You are told about social distancing. How do you social distance when you've moved just to one room, or you've just been into one room? So all this, the fact that there came a panic. When there was lockdown, when a man loses a job or a woman loses a job, there is a panic. And this panic destabilizes you, psychologically, emotionally, and even, physically, because and socially, because now men may even try to hide. Yeah, they are not used to, staying at home and not providing. They are used to provide. And so how does a man cope in that state? Their coping skill tells them, fight, you go to FF, fight or flee. But because he's a man, his masculinity does not allow him to move away. So what does he do? He turns to his wife, whom he thinks keep on asking him for A, B, C, D in the house, and to provide, and he cannot provide. So COVID-19 has really destabilized us. And especially when we look at young people who are going to school, what disturbs young people most? Will I go back to school? Will my father pay for my school fees? Because he's now at home. He has lost his job. And this one,
anxiety that have come about, with the domino effect of COVID-19. We'll come back to you, Dr. to just try and see now, because we're already in this situation, and a cure of COVID-19 is still at large. We need to get coping mechanisms so that we can all, survive this. Before we get to that part, how about we get to one more of our participants? That is Namadi. Good morning, Namadi. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
Great to see you once again. Remind us where you're live from.
I'm live from County 001, Mombasa.
County 01, that is Mombasa. Hali vipi, now we can move, we can come to Mombasa, especially from next week. We will be flooding there once everything goes well with the SGR and also the local flights. We will be flooding the beaches one more time. And how is your daughter? We've missed her, Ariana. How is she doing? How is Ariana
She's
doing?
she's fine. She's here playing with her brothers.
Okay. I hope they don't go switch off the internet like last time. We just pray that they will. Yes,
I'm
last time
watching
they switched off the Wi-Fi while you were really while you were giving your feedback. I hope this time they won't do it. Now, no, we have been talking about the issue of mental wellness and just borrowing from a report that has already been published and handed over to the president, and it says that 1 out of every Kenyans is suffering from one form of mental disorder and another. And a report that a survey that has been done in peri-urban areas shows that parents are saying that feeding their children is one of the stresses that they're dealing with. You're a parent yourself. What is your take about this issue?
I'll start. I have maybe three things I would say. One, yesterday I met a friend who is a teacher. Both the mother and the father are teachers in private schools. And she told me that the husband, that is on Tuesday, received a letter from the school saying that they have terminated payment. They will not pay them anything because now schools cannot open anymore. I mean, they are not operating. Therefore, she said the husband came in and was quiet the whole day till evening, until the following day. The wife would ask, "What is wrong, honey?" He was not talking. So later on in the night is when she woke her up and told her to sit down and told her that I don't have an income right now. Now, this is somebody who lives in a flat where they have to pay about 15 to 20,000. A wife who is also a teacher on actually half salary, and they're supposed to cater for their children. She was telling me that she doesn't know what to do because to help the husband because the man already is depressed. The following day in the morning, he got on his motorbike and just rode and went. Okay, so later on he came back, yes. But you can see the situation of what is happening right now when it comes that you are unable to take care of your children. You're unable to provide the basic. He is a man and he is not able to pay rent for his children. Like Dr. said earlier, you're unable to feed them, you're unable to provide for them their basic needs. Now that becomes very, very, very traumatizing to any man or any parent when you're unable to feed your children, you're unable to provide a medical care, and you feel less of a man or a person. So those are very key and fundamental issues that are happening right now. In fact, the middle income, quote unquote, people are the ones who need to be provided for by the feeding programs that are happening, because you're staying in these particular houses, you're keeping to yourself. You don't want to show yourself that you are unable to make it. You don't want to move. That's why you're ending up seeing people are committing suicide. People are going out into alcohol and GBV. In fact, I was telling my friend, if your husband was not born again because we go to church together, I think that day you'll have had it with the question, because she's really talkative. You'll have had it with the questions you're asking. So GBV and issues of providing for your children, if you're unable to do that and you're having a partner that's asking you questions, you end up getting that. Okay? Then the second thing I want to talk about on mental health. When I was growing up, I'm a firstborn, and I felt the responsibility of being a first child very heavy on me. I was supposed to act in a certain manner. I was supposed to take responsibility in a certain manner. And it really, I had to be there. My parents kept on telling me, I love my mom. And if she's watching, I really appreciate her because I'm speaking about her right now. She was a teacher, disciplinarian, and I took the brunt of it. I had to be straight. I had to walk in a certain way. And that went all the way to school. Teachers expected a certain way from me. So I ended up living in a shed, covering up. I desired to go and play kati. I desired to do this, but I could not do because I was expected to behave in a certain way. That really affected me when I was growing up. It affected me to a point that one time I took my bag and tried to run away from home because I was really tired. Everything was like namadi, 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 you know. So that can also affect seriously children when it comes to mental health. It affected me. It made me even up to date. I still feel so much responsibility over my siblings, responsibility at my workplace. I feel I need to be able to accomplish certain things, even if I'm feeling like I'm being pressed. So I kind of press my feelings. I press so that I can be able to stand up for others as a firstborn. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Namadi, for sharing that particular story there. Having been, or rather still, as I understand what you're saying, yeah, at some point, being a firstborn is not an easy thing, and I feel you, because being a firstborn, you also take up the role. You are actually the litmus test for your parents to do all that they can when they're raising other children. So I feel indeed, you've said that the middle class is suffering in silence. And before we rope in the doctor who is still online, that is Dr. Margaret Orlando, to just expand on this issue. How about to get one more contributor into this conversation so that now we can engage the great doctor with that particular issue. But the take home from Namadi is that there are a lot of expectations, especially for firstborns while they're growing up, as well as now currently with the current situation, is that the middle class is suffering in silence. Now crossing over to Christopher. Good morning, Christopher. How are you?
Morning. How are you? Thank you.
Great to have you on board. Thank you for your time. Tell us where you're live from.
Live from Nairobi.
Good. Now you've heard the conversation and how it has been panning out. What do you have to say in regard to just this issue of mental wellness?
Thank you. First of all, I would want to say that it is timely, and in fact, in the course of the week, I had some discussion with Tim, who is one of my mentors, and the issue that we were raising was thinking of having a session where parents can talk about some of these things that are affecting us. And he did mention to me that, by the way, on Thursday, we'll be having a discussion on mental health. I said, wow, then I need to participate, because my background, I'm a counselor by profession. And some of these issues that we are seeing, and there are things that are there, they are real. They are real. And one of the challenges that we have had as a country is that the counseling profession has not been taken seriously. So you see that people are suffering. They do not want to go and speak to a counselor. Like Daktari says that, no, when you tell these people, no, go and speak, they wonder, what do I go and tell somebody? Why should I tell somebody my secret? So, you know, from that perspective, you find that so many people are hurting and they don't want to speak out. And it boils down even to young people right now. And you find that the challenges that we are facing, for example, I'm a parent and I have a candidate in my house. And you know, these people are being told that, you know, there'll be no exam this year. And they're talking about next year. Remember, in terms of preparation for exams, there are a number of preparations. There's that psychological preparation where the child knows that by the end of this year, I'll no longer be a primary child, I'll be moving to high school. Or I'll no longer be a high school person, I'll be going to a college. Now that psychological preparation is there, regardless of whether the syllabus is finished or not finished, whether I'm ready or not ready. But I just feel that, you know, I'm beyond this level, I need to move. Now managing that, it becomes a challenge. You know, right now as a country, we are talking about the syllabus. Now who is there who is helping this child to cope up with this psychological dilemma? Where, you know, I'm not going to move to the next level next year. And now we are thinking about the syllabus is not finished. I know when you talk to some of them, they'll tell you, no, you know me, I'm ready. Let it come. Now, ready psychology in terms of moving to the next level. So that is, those are some of the issues that, you know, these young people are struggling with. But I want to thank the government, at least for acknowledging that this is a problem, that we need now to move to the next level. And we need now to appreciate the work that Tari and the rest of us are doing in trying to address some of these things. But now we need to look at it from this perspective. How do we cope up with the challenges that are there? Because challenges will be there. And Tari will tell you, unless you know you don't push, you are not pushed, you might not even move. If there are not these stresses that come along, it might not be, you might not move to the next level. But now, how do you cope up with these stresses that come along your way? So these are the things that are there.
that is the
the other
direction that we
thing,
need to take. Thank you very much, Christopher, for your contribution there, saying that he's in the counseling profession and says that it hasn't been taken seriously. Now we cross over to Dr. Margaret Lande, who's a psychologist. One question here that has been highlighted by Christopher is that, you know, the preparedness, the level of preparedness that candidates had, some of them and some of the parents who've been sharing have said that their children were saying, it's now sinking that they have lost 1 year. Especially now within the, you know, African setup, we know that young boys go through rites of passage, and one of them happens to be, you know, circumcision, and this is usually done you know, when they're transiting from primary school to secondary school, or rather high school. This is not going to happen this year because the exams have been postponed to the next year. This is a wasted year. But Madam Daktari, how then can parents deal with that, you know, anxiety that will come from, you know, from that lack of transition? What would you tell to parents who are facing that current dilemma at this point?
Thank you. I like what Christopher brought about counseling and the misunderstanding that is there that prevents people from going for counseling. What we've been struggling with is maybe the way counseling was introduced in this country makes people feel that, or even mental illness, because whenever you tell someone to go for counseling, they think you are looking at them as people who are, you know, to use the layman's word, mad. You know, this person is thinking that I'm mad, you know. So when they check themselves and put themselves in that corner, then they will not, you know, agree to go for counseling, which is the only way that can help them to cope. So probably as counselors, maybe we need to go back to the drawing board and redefine what is counseling. What does it help people with? Is it just mad people who go to see, you know, a psychiatrist or a counselor? So when that definition is properly done and, you know, people are educated, people are not really educated about counseling. People fear even to be known that they are doing counseling. In fact, I know those who probably this time round are happy maybe to talk to a counselor through, you know, Zoom or any other way, you know, have conferences, but not really be seen. They would rather not their faces be seen on one-to-one. Mm-hmm. But counseling is just helping you to cope with a situation in which you yourself, you are overwhelmed. You don't even know what to do. You know, you are stressed about it, disturbed about it. And so you want some to hear it from a professional, you know, view. What is it that I am going through? So I really like what Christopher has brought about. And I also want us to delve a bit about education and, you know, young people and the fact that they are now staying at home. Their plans have been, the disruption that has just come all of a sudden, that up to March, these students prepared very well psychologically and emotionally, and, you know, they were all, you know, prepared to do their exams. For example, they know that we are home for such a period, and then now next we will go to school, and then all of a sudden they are being told to go home. They cannot meet their friends. They cannot talk to their friends the way they used to talk to. You know, their parents are like watching over them 24 hours. They find themselves in a corner that psychologically brings some sort of emotional stress. Where am I caged here? Yeah. So this, and then the anxiety of tomorrow. I was expecting that maybe I'm in a university. When I complete, I look for a job and, you know, go to the next level in my life. I'm in Form 4. I was ready to do my exams. I've prepared, I've been reading, you know, all this, and all this has been just all of a sudden cut off. Where does that one take that child? And who is there to talk to that child, to talk to such a person, to tell them it is well. No one prepared for COVID-19. It is a situation, it's a global pandemic where we have found ourselves. So that's why I said even earlier that we need counseling even in schools. You know, we need to tell them that it is okay to lose a year or so, or to lose months, because it is something that is beyond us. But students are just overwhelmed, they are just on their own. And so I was looking at what are the solutions that we can take. Because if you are in Nairobi, maybe where the internets are good, these people are going on with their studies. How about that child at home? You know, in the rural areas where even there's no internet. What can the government do so that they are also roped in, so that they are not losing, you know, because the disruption is just too much for them and they are overwhelmed. How about delivering you know, low technology where it is necessary so that they can also go to school? How about having textbooks taken to centers where in the rural areas, where so that children also go on with their studies?
Okay.
All this has overwhelmed the young people.
The young people.
Are
Now,
overwhelmed.
Dr. Before we get to look at the recommendations that you're going to give us, you know, just some of the tidbits, you know, for parents who are handling such an issue at home with the students, you know, with the school calendar now probably put on hold. Let's hear from Shirlene. Good morning, Shirlene. How are you?
I'm good.
Great. County 001 Mombasa, right? Great to see you. You're looking
but
nice.
I'm still
Now we are ready to come to Mombasa. Yeah, the cessation of movement just ceased. You should expect the buses, the SGR, and the domestic flights to start coming. So exactly where in Mombasa are you?
right now I'm still in Nairobi, but I'm yet
Oh.
to travel within this coming week.
Oh, so you're traveling to Mombasa. Ah, great. Now, you've
Yeah,
had the
so-
contributions from, you know, Nkatha, Murat, Timothy, Jackie, you know, around this issue of mental wellness. I'd want to hear from you. What do you have to say in regard to mental wellness? Have you found yourself in a situation where you felt overwhelmed about something, it gave you anxiety and stress over it? Maybe you can share?
Yeah, sure. If you look at me closely, like my eye are not the same. I have one that it's quite impaired, and like the other. So this was a different turn for me way back in 2012 when I was still in class 6. Just on a normal day, I was going to participate in a debate at Sacred Heart in Mombasa. Then my eyes just got itchy a bit. I thought it was something normal, you know. So we only 50 bob had to do all this damage because I needed a quick medication to get back to school. So we went to a chemist and bought the wrong medication. We thought it was the one because the specialist told us that it's going to work to avoid the itchiness. So that was it. Up to date, it changed me because I remember it was on a Thursday till Saturday. My eye turned. I could not see with it. Up to now, I'm using one eye. It made me become an introvert. I had a lot of stress because meeting people, being in a class where I'm the only one who has this eye challenge, and it's not like I was born this, so it's something that came up abrupt when I was still in school at an adolescent stage where you really want to look good, ravishing, and all that. So it was a big challenge. It caused me a lot of trauma. I at times still recovering, but you know, trying to accept myself, like this is how I'm going to be. I have to be using glasses. I have to use one eye. It was not an easy thing.
Thank you for sharing, Charlene. We are going to talk about, you know, just how, you know, your coping mechanisms. Just we have Dr. online, Dr. Margaret Orlando, who's going to share, you know, just what you need to do to just get back your self-esteem. Because in as much as this has happened, you have a whole life future ahead of you, and it is definitely out there for you to just grab it. Let's listen in to our next guest to just give us their feedback in regard to mental wellness. Next online is Good morning. The producer is getting that particular name. Yes. Hey, Martha Oguna, great to see you. How are you?
Thank you. Hi, Ray.
Great. That is County 01. Yes, 001.
Yes, it is.
Good.
Yes.
Now, Martha, what do you have to say in regard to just issues of mental wellness? Have you had an experience you'd want to share?
One of the things that I would say is that mental wellness does not know titles. Personally, I've gone through postnatal depression, and imagine even being in the health profession, I still did not recognize that I had mental health, or rather, I did not accept it. And actually, I had the postnatal depression for both children. And this is not easy to just accept that you have to see a psychiatrist, to see a counselor. And this is something that we don't accept as a society.
Now, the postnatal depression, I know, especially when that comes in, especially where mothers are concerned, you also start questioning, is that doesn't mean I'm not a good mother? How come I'm feeling the way I'm feeling, and yet this is a bundle of joy that I'm holding in my hands? So how did you get over it, Martha?
In fact, many times I had the feelings of this is a bundle of trouble for me. But for me, I think I would say that I was lucky. My husband being also in the medical profession, he is the one actually who noticed that there's something that totally is not right. Because I did not want the child, I did not want to associate myself with the child. And anytime the child would wake up to cry, I would wake up and just walk off to the sitting room. So having a very a caring partner and a partner who actually worked with me had some bit of help for me to even recognize that I needed help to go to hospital and all that. Otherwise, sometimes you go through these things, and even having the knowledge, you don't accept that this is a challenge or this is a problem.
So for you, it's the support system that you had there that helped you cope with that particular issue. And I like what you said, is that even being within the medical, the medical field, is that mental illness does not, it's not about, it cuts across board. The old, the young, professionals, rich, poor, everyone is either susceptible to this particular, mental illness. From where you sit, and I'm sure you've handled quite a number of cases, what advice would you give to someone who is watching, especially just a young mother, maybe especially first-time parents, or those who have had, they found themselves pregnant and maybe they had already started taking contraceptives, they had said they're done with giving birth. What advice would you give them?
The advice I would give is that it's good for you to accept health and to know the triggers that come with any postnatal depression, especially once you start having any withdrawal signs to your own child, or feelings of lack of interest to taking care of the child, or your daily any daily things that you do, you start having disinterest in them, or they are now bothering you. It's usually a trigger. And this more, I would say also to the people who are actually around women who are pregnant or giving birth. It's good to actually, they're the ones who can easily recognize whether this person has an issue, and to just tell them to seek help, or to take them to seek some help. Because if were it not for my husband, for me, even just going to the psychiatrist, I had clearly known, being taken to Dr. So-and-so, I knew, why are you taking me there? Because it means I'm mad. So these are some of the things that we need to walk through with the people who are closest to us, to know that it's not like it's something that is a disease that cannot go away. It's something that is manageable.
We need to change our perceptions in terms of seeking help, especially when it comes to mental illness. That has been our contributor, Martha Oguna from County 001 there, just saying that she underwent a postnatal depression, and her support structure, that is her husband, helped her get through it, though she was a bit resistant and hesitant because she knew what she's going through, but she just, this is a state of mind. Now let's get our next contributor as we work. Okay, now apparently now we in our meeting room this morning, That is now, let's go back to to Dr. Margaret Olande, who is a psychologist. And as we wind down this particular conversation, Daktari, pertinent questions have come out, especially the issue. Kenyans want to know what are the triggers for mental illness. Let's begin from there. Triggers that we can all look out for.
Thank you. But before we go to triggers, maybe I want to appreciate Charlene for coming out and sharing what she has been going through. The fact that she had that impaired, and now.
Well, we are trying to work on your video, Daktari, there, and yes, Charlene's case, we are still going to answer it, but there's a question that we've decided, let's talk about the triggers first, then we talk about Charlene, because the issue of recovery and self-esteem, so that we can identify how we can, stay away from this, and now tackle the issue of Charlene, and also mention about the issue of postnatal depression. The video is in the right position now. Over to you, Daktari.
Triggers are just anything that makes you feel uncomfortable, anything that you cannot deal with. When you cannot deal with a situation, and you become anxious, you panic, you don't even know what to do with yourself. So when anxiety comes, then that is one, and anxiety is one of the triggers. Being able to cope is also one of the triggers. Sometimes a type of illness, you can go through an illness that takes you off your course. You are geared to do something that you knew that by this time I will have finished. Like right now that children are at home, losing a job can be a trigger, because it causes stress, and that stress, if it is not properly or medically managed, it can lead to a depression. So those are also triggers and also pointers. So whenever one finds trauma, we go through a trauma, maybe it's not you who is in that situation, but maybe a parent, someone you love so much, losing someone, going through, like maybe you had an accident and you are part of your leg or part of your body has to be amputated. Those are the triggers. Just finding yourself in a situation where you are emotionally and psychologically overwhelmed, that can trigger a mental illness. Being unable to cope, being anxious, being in a very stressful
situation, anything that makes you anxious, an overwhelming sense of incapacity to cope.
So much. We worry about tomorrow, about your children, about your husband, being like diseases that have no cure, like maybe cancer, or even being attacked, or even being raped. You find yourself you have been raped, or for a lady, becoming pregnant in the middle of your career or school. All those are circumstances that causes you to be able to cope and to be overwhelmed. So those are the triggers. Some of the triggers. Triggers are many.
Now, Dr. Ri, let me take you back to Charlene's case. She shared her, her experience is that now she has an eye impairment, but she was not born that way. And she mentioned that that was a mistake, a 50 shilling mistake that she's still recovering from. Issues of low self-esteem. Advice to Charlene and those who are still struggling with issues of low self-esteem, Dr. Ri.
So Charlene, thank you so much for sharing. As a lady, one can just imagine what this has done to your self-esteem. You mentioned that it was just a question of 50 bob. I don't know whether you said that you did not have the money, because then that will take us to social, economic issues of maybe poverty or something like that. But that was not clear. I think what you said that was clear was that you were given a wrong medicine. But it goes with that, because had you gone to a proper doctor, perhaps you would not be who you are today. But then that this is an emotional, that this causes emotional stress, because you're just imagining, if I was able to go to a proper, medical person, I would still have my eyes they used to be. My self-esteem would not have been lowered, and all these emotions are so overwhelming. Because this has to do with your character. This is a character trait. It has taken you to who you are not, before, and people are looking at you, and you tend to think that everyone is judging you. Everyone is saying, look at that girl. I cannot date this girl. But may I affirm you today that you are so beautiful. You are who you are today. You can do whatever you want to do in life. You can achieve your goals. You don't have to look down upon yourself. And when you feel overwhelmed, I don't know whether you went for counseling, but when you feel overwhelmed, please just go for counseling, because this is quite overwhelming. It is an emotional state of mind. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you very much, Dr. for that insight in regard to Charlene's issue, and all those who might be struggling with issues of low esteem. How about, because we've been getting feedback in regard to that particular conversation that we're having, and as we wind down this particular conversation,